Hi, I'm Dr. G, the Mad Shrink, a board certified psychiatrist, and I'm here to offer you information and advice and to challenge your assumptions about things you thought you already knew. And in today's podcast, I'll be talking about the problem of anxiety, so-called anxiety disorders, and specifically breathing and thinking your way out of anxiety. Anxiety is the most prevalent complaint for which we seek mental health assistance. The number one, very prevalent. What exactly is anxiety? It's a disturbance of mind and body. Very important to include both mind and body, which involves a sense of apprehension about some negative occurrence that will occur in the future. The future being in the next few seconds or next week. And this distress is accompanied by a sense of feeling unsafe. You're unsafe, the world is unsafe, loved ones are unsafe. Something about a lack of safety is involved in anxiety. And the sense of safety is what we want to strive for when we're feeling anxious. A sense of safety comes about because of the functioning of a part of our autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, the main element of which is the vagus nerve. So we want to recruit the functioning of the parasympathetic nervous system and the vagus nerve to help us feel safe. There are two main ways we can do that and do it very effectively. And everything I'm going to tell you today, I've seen work extremely well for a variety of people with problems with anxiety. The first mode that I'll be discussing will be our breathing. Whenever you are very anxious, notice what happens to your breathing. It changes, which makes sense if you consider that when we are actually in a real life threat, when we're actually in realistic danger, our breathing will change then also in a fight or flight sense. We breathe faster, we take in perhaps larger amounts of air, increase what's called the tidal volume of our air that goes in and out of our lungs, and we also tend to breathe with our mouths open. When you think about some dire situation in which you're feeling unsafe, a maniac stalking you down a dark alley with a machete, you're going to breathe faster and harder with your mouth open, with the sense that if you do that, you'll get more air, more oxygen, and get the heck out of there. Now, what that breathing does is tell our central nervous system, tell our vagus nerve, and tells our central nervous system we are unsafe. Whenever we breathe like that, that is a signal that we need to be in fight or flight mode. Even if we're just shopping in the middle of a supermarket for a container of milk and nothing is happening, and we're starting to think about some anxious thing that happened yesterday or that will happen tomorrow, and we start breathing in an abnormal way, increasing our respirations, usually with our mouth open. And as we breathe that way, we make things worse, because as we're breathing all of the carbon dioxide out of our lungs, a waste gas, as you know, as we do that, the carbon dioxide level in our bloodstream decreases, and below a certain point, that makes us feel unwell, makes us feel dizzy, lightheaded, tingling in hands, feet, or around the mouth, unsteady, more anxious. So it becomes a vicious cycle. And so what we want to do is get out of that vicious cycle by, among other things, changing our breathing. And even if there still is the root cause of the anxiety remain to be resolved, just changing our breathing affects our physiology so we can feel safer. Now, there are several tactics for doing this, and I'll describe 3 or 4, but there are variations, and if there's a variation that works better for you, fine. The first of these is timed breathing. And an example would be instead of breathing in a dysfunctional, anxiety-provoking way, breathing into the silent and mental count of 4, holding it for the silent and mental count of 7, then breathing out to the silent and mental count of 8. So 4, 7, 8. Another variation is breathing in 4, holding the breath in the inspired position for the count of 4, breathing out for the count of 6, holding the breath in the exhaled position for the count of 2. So 4, 4, 6, 2. Still another way is gently breathing in, gently breathing out through all of this through your nose, by the way. All of these routines should be through the nose, provided you don't have some sinus or nasal problem, because that signals to your brain that you're safe. If you were really unsafe, you would probably be breathing more through your mouth. At any rate, the last tactic that I mentioned is breathing in slowly, gently, breathing out, holding the exhaled breath, holding it, and silently and mentally counting up to 5 if that's comfortable for you. If it's not, if it feels uncomfortable, then being less ambitious and going up to a count of 3 before you take your next breath. So in effect, you're prolonging your exhaled part of the breathing cycle. And that's the commonality with these different therapeutic breathing techniques, is that you are lengthening the exhalation beyond the time of inhalation. That signals to your central nervous system that you are safe. Because just think of it, if you're in danger, you're not going to allow yourself to exhale in a leisurely way before you take your next breath. You're going to be in a hurry to take the next breath. Peculiarly enough, if you hum the exhalation, that can have additional stimulating effect of the vagus nerve. So, while you're breathing out. That may be one reason, probably is one reason why can have such a therapeutic effect. Humming has a stimulating effect on your parasympathetic nervous system. It recruits your parasympathetic nervous system. And in the same way that it's probably helpful when you're reciting an Om in a Buddhist chant, same effect. So don't be shy about humming. One point that's important to underline in these exercises is that if you're feeling anxious about holding your breath for more than the smallest period of time, be aware that when you're holding your breath and you feel a need to take another breath, it's not because you lack oxygen. You're not going to die from oxygen starvation. You have plenty of oxygen available. The urge to breathe occurs because the carbon dioxide, the waste gas in your system, rises above a certain level and prompts you to need to breathe. So you're not going to die, you're not going to suffocate if you hold your breath a little bit too long. It's a signal from the elevated level of carbon dioxide. that over time you could get used to accommodating and become comfortable with. Now, why are you breathing abnormally in the first place? It very likely is because you've had some thoughts that have prompted you to feel anxious mentally and to change your breathing and feel anxious in your body as a result. Remember, mind and body are inseparable. So another approach to the problem of anxiety has been well documented in publications about the form of therapy, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Lots of books about it. Probably the best known book is actually about the use of CBT in depression, Feeling Good by David Burns. But the principles are the same as using it in anxiety. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, involves the central principle that our emotional distress is caused by dysfunctional thoughts. It's not true 100% of the time, but darn near 100%. So the order of the day then is to understand what dysfunctional thoughts you're having are producing your emotional distress and learning how to change them to more realistic, healthier, and more functional thinking, which is very possible. There are plenty of forms of psychotherapy that are useful and effective. CBT is probably the form of therapy, the results of which are the best documented. People who do CBT love to document and do research, so that may be why. But it's very effective for anxiety. Now, there are several forms of dysfunctional thinking that pop up with considerable frequency in anxiety, and I'll tell you about them. There are 4 I'll tell you about. The first is fortune telling, the assumption without good evidence that something will happen in the future of a negative sort. For example, if I make a mistake on this term paper that I'm writing, I'm going to flunk the course. Or if I don't answer my emails right away, the boss will fire me. Fortune telling. And the business of CBT is to challenge these thoughts, see what evidence there is or isn't for them, and substitute more realistic thinking. Then there's the cognitive distortion, as they're called, of mind reading. When I go to the party later, people are going to think I'm dressed terribly. They'll make fun of me. Or when I open my mouth, they'll realize I'm stupid. Attributing to other people thoughts or feelings that are negative without good evidence is what's termed mind reading. Very common. This is basically the sine qua non of social anxiety disorder, always present in social anxiety disorder. A third cognitive distortion, commonly found associated with anxiety, is an emphasis, a mental emphasis on should, S-H-O-U-L-D, what I call shoulding, associated with self-blame. If I'm up at the plate, it's the bottom of the 9th inning, bases are loaded, and if I don't get a hit, it's my fault that our team has lost the pennant. Taking onto oneself responsibilities and blame that do not belong there, for which there's no good evidence, with an implicit sense that you should or should be doing something different than what you are, that's another type of cognitive distortion. A fourth one that can be associated with anxiety, for sure with depression, is a cognitive distortion called labeling, in which you expand the meaning of one or more events into a statement about your worth or value as a person, as a whole. So if I want to approach this woman after class because she looks interesting and she looked my way, but maybe I better not do that because she might reject me, which is fortune telling and also mind reading, but that will make me a loser. If I don't get an A on my final exam, I am a failure. I can't allow myself to get anything less than an A. So taking one event or a couple of events and making them be a statement about your worth as a person is labeling. CBT, very effective for anxiety. Here's another tactic, though. Anxiety is a disguised ally, believe it or not. This is particularly the case when we're talking about performance anxiety. So if you stand in front of a room about to deliver some sort of talk about something you feel strongly about, and you start feeling very anxious, breathing abnormally, feeling trembling, feeling faint, you're mistaking the meaning of your anxiety for all it is disguised excitement that you're turning against yourself. Anxiety all too often is disguised excitement about some new situation that you're turning against yourself. New situation, possibly being going to some event or meeting somebody or having some task you need to perform. Things you haven't done before, or perhaps things that seem new to you. What you're actually experiencing is the excitement and even passion about what you're doing. I really want to get across this information to these people, and I hope they find it helpful. Or I really would love to meet this woman, but you're turning that against yourself through the kind of cognitive distortions I was just talking about. So accepting that, gee, I'm just excited. That's what I'm feeling. And I used to have horrible performance anxiety when I got up to talk in front of people, and I began realizing that I'm just excited, passionate about what I'm doing, and that helped tremendously to allay my anxiety. Here's another thing that many people who are anxious are diagnosed with some sort of anxiety disorder, social anxiety, panic attack, obsessive compulsive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder. It's important to bear in mind, as I've said in a previous podcast, that anxiety is not a thing that you have. Again, it's not like a peanut butter sandwich. It's not like a Cadillac. It's a dysfunction. So the question in determining the cause of anxiety disorders is not what is it, but how it happens, how the dysfunction happens. It's a dysfunction rather than a thing. Once you recognize that, that opens up all sorts of possibilities for understanding how to not be anxious. If it's just a thing, only a doctor can excise or medicate away a thing. But if it's a dysfunction, there are many things you can do to change how you become anxious. Well, I've enjoyed being with you today on this podcast, and I look forward to seeing you the next time. And make sure to follow and rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also make sure to subscribe on YouTube at the Mad Shrink Podcast. See you soon. Bye-bye. Be well.